Blue Nocturne. Sunlight danced off the surface of the ocean like 1,000 sequined sirens, diamond white and twinkling. Bare-eyed and slightly bright, stared out at the undulating bay. Much as it stung his sunburned eyes to look, he found its rhythmic rise and fall strangely seductive. The effect, felt as much in his groin as his head, was further compounded when a pair of young lovelies sashayed into view, the strings of their bikini bottoms swaying in time with their rounded bottoms. Ethan's eyes strained to follow the duo as they made their sultry progress down the sand, collecting gazes the way children pick up shells, quick and indiscriminately. They reminded Ethan of modern-day sea maidens out to capsize ships and drown men in their sailing embrace. I need to get laid, Ethan thought, giving his shorts a corrective tug while casting a furtive glance at his very pregnant wife, Ondine. Ondine made great sport of catching her husband checking out other women. She would anticipate his glances, their angle, breast, butt, face, and thus precede him to their target. Laying in wait, she would pretend not to notice his wandering eyes and then, bam, expose him for the inept voyeur he was with that stultifying, I caught you look of hers. At this moment, however, Ondine was not looking at her husband, but their 5-year-old son, Jason. The boy, covered nearly head to toe in protective sun gear, was sitting in his blue and green inflatable dinghy at the water's edge, peering eagerly out at the horizon. Jason, having recently entered his pirate phase, was all about sailing and swashbuckling and plunders. Night before last, he buried his mother's wallet in the backyard without leaving so much as a treasure map for his parents to follow. Watching his wife watch their son, Ethan saw how completely absent he was from his wife's radar screen, libidinous or otherwise. This disappointed him, since Ethan had rather hoped his wife had seen him ogling the girls. It might have served as a heads-up regarding the desperate state of his neglected male member here in his wife's last month of pregnancy. Perhaps, after giving him her usual ribbing, she would have found it in her heart to take pity on him tonight in bed. It certainly wouldn't take much. Ethan, suddenly hungry for attention, reached across the strip of sand separating his and his wife's 2 beach chairs and squeezed Ondine's thigh just above the knee. "Ouch," Ondine said, her knee jumping. "That was nice." "It was either that or grope something else," Ethan replied, making every effort to look pathetic. "All this flesh getting to you?" Ondine said as she returned her eyes to the boy. Though Ethan could see her face, her profile suggested a smug grin. "Not one bit," he said, moving his hand toward his wife's inner thigh. "I've got plenty of flesh right here." "Gee, thanks," Ondine said, batting his arm away. The smug grin disappeared to be replaced by a tight, flat lip line. He'd pissed her off. "I didn't mean it that way," Ethan said. "I like your flesh. I love your flesh." "Ew, stop it," Ondine said. "You sound like a cannibal, a lecherous one." "I'm your lech," Ethan grinned, reclining back in his beach chair. "Lucky me." Ondine's voice was flat, but her face showed the hint of a smile. Ethan shrugged and looked back at the beach. She is lucky, Ethan thought, glancing down the shore for one last look at the 2 bikini-clad girls, now barely distinguishable among the heat waves that rose from the sand. Not once in their 13 years together, 8 of which had been as a married couple, had Ethan ever strayed with another woman. He might look at girls all day long, but flirt with one? Never. It wasn't in his makeup. A self-proclaimed simple man, Ethan was loath to complicate what he considered to be a rather satisfying life. He had managed to marry a beautiful woman, smart and above his station, who had given him a fine son, many hours of interesting conversation, and predictably good sex. The girls on the beach, like the big-breasted waitress at last night's restaurant and his drafting assistant, Tiffany, were eye candy, meant for the brain to nibble on. Nothing more. When it came to the big bites, Ondine was all the sustenance he needed. Extracting the half-drunk bottle of Albarino nestled in the blue cooler between himself and Ondine, Ethan poured himself another glass of wine. Taking a sip of the crisp, slightly warm wine, he shot a sideways glance at his attorney wife. He liked to look at Ondine this way, quick and sneaky, the way he imagined other men, strange men, looked at her. Undine wasn't one of those loud beauties, all blondness and breast. With the exception of her skin, which was rather pale, everything about her, hair, eyes, lips, was dark and mellow. And yet, Undine had a certain gravitas about her that defied her melt-in-your-mouth chocolate looks. Though petite and sinewy, Undine carried herself in such a way that she seemed much larger. Not large like she was now, big belly and all, but height-wise. Small but mighty. Undine had stature. Surveying his wife's protruding belly, Ethan wondered if the baby girl in her stomach would be more like him or Undine. He didn't know if he could deal with two Undines under the same roof. Thinking it might be good to get into his daughter's good graces early, Ethan leaned for a second time across the strip of sand to where his wife sat, resting his blonde, wavy head on Undine's red lycra-covered belly. He spoke to his unborn child. "Hello, baby. Daddy here." Undine, playing along, answered in falsetto. "Hello, Daddy. You're awfully nice, but can you please get off my left butt cheek? You're hurting Mommy's back." "Only if you'll ask your mother to go swimming with me first," Ethan said, pressing his lips against Undine's belly. Combing her fingers through her husband's hair so that Ethan's scalp tingled, Undine's smoky adult voice took over. Who would watch Jason? Lifting his head off his wife's belly, Ethan nuzzled up to Undine's ear and whispered, "You're no fun. I wasn't thinking about a swim so much as some bobbing about, me holding you, both of us facing the beach." "I know what you were thinking," Undine said, pushing his face away from its perch just above her breasts. "Forget it." The two watched in silence as their son abandoned his craft on the dry sand in order to help a pretty girl about his age construct a sandcastle. Ethan recognized the child from the encampment a few towels over. She and Jason had been working in parallel patterns all day. Here it was, almost 4 p.m., and they had finally connected. Ethan hoped for all their sakes her parents wouldn't break it up too soon. Stretching out on his beach towel, his back reclined against his elbows, Ethan framed the bony back figures of his son and young friend between his feet. From that vantage point, he watched them place seaweed flags atop their bucket-made towers while reinforcing their hapless moats against the rising tide. Thank you.
Good job.